You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 14th part of What If Naruto Enters K-Pop Demon Hunters. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Slygold on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. He moved slow, boots whispering over the cracked flagstones, as if sound might wake the dead that still threaded this place like smoke. Each landmark carried an ache like a bruise, small, private things that shouldn't have mattered until they were all the world had left him. The pond where his father taught him to bait a hook and laugh when the line snapped. The hollow stump where his brother used to practice throwing knives and grin when he hit the mark. A splintered swing with his mother's laugh still braided into the ropes. Everything that had been ordinary was a map of what had been taken. The market was a ruin, shelves sagging, glass webbed like spider silk. The tomatoes his aunt had once pressed into his hands were now shriveled into shapes a child might pretend were fruit. He could close his eyes and still see the way his uncle had wiped soil from his hands to tuck him under his coat. Sasuke's fingers tightened on the sword at his hip, leather rustling like a wounded bird. When he reached the house, the world narrowed until it was only the timbers and the soot-stained stone. The door still hung crooked on its hinges, a splintered smile. He paused on the threshold, breath catching, because stepping over that line felt like stepping over a life he'd once belonged to. Inside the parlor the Uchiha crest hung above the fireplace, blackened around the edges where smoke had kissed it, the lacquer peeling in faint, familiar loops. He had avoided this house for years because every plank held the echo of a scream, every corner hid the shadow of betrayal. Now he stood directly beneath the crest, the air thick with old ash and colder things than winter. Itachi's voice slick with mockery and a hunger Sasuke had tried to drown uncoiled inside his head with that same dreadful intimacy. When you believe you are strong enough, pour your resonance into the Uchiha crest above the fireplace and we will have our duel, little brother. Your soul will be delicious after it's tainted and empowered by rage. The words had been meant as bait, as prayer and prophecy all at once. They had been a knife and a promise. Sasuke let that memory settle like dust, and for a second he tasted iron and the cedar of the mantle his mother had sanded with her own hands. He should have hated the sound of Itachi's name until it curdled. He did hate it, but something else fed off of it too, a long, patient heat that had been building inside him since the day the village burned. He drew his blade without theatrics, the motion was as natural as breathing. The wooden floor creaked under his weight, different timbre now, like the boards themselves sighed at his return. He set the tip into the hearth and knelt before the crest because ritual mattered, even if the only witness was a colder version of the man who taught him to fight. Heat pooled in his belly, not the frantic flare of panic or the thin shiver of fear, but a steady, volcanic feed. He called on his resonance, not the flash and fury he used in a fight, but something patient and wide. It flowed up his arms like a black river, then settled over his chest like a second skin. The Sharingan's pain prickled behind his lids while he focused, narrowing every thought down to the single point of the crest. He felt the crest answer, an empty, hungry thing that remembered the clan better than any of the living. He pressed his palms to the cold wood and let his resonance seep out in a hot, molten whisper. It thrummed through the grain as if the house itself had a pulse. For a moment the room tasted like the desert after rain, earth and ozone and the memory of fireworks. Images flashed: birchwood games, his mother's hands, small arguments over tea, Itachi's patient smile and the sensation of pouring a part of himself into something that had been hollowed by vengeance and history. The crest drank. The wood around it warmed, then glowed faintly, a red bloom like a wound beneath the lacquer. Sasuke felt the echo of his own rage returned in fragment reverberations of every cut he'd taken, every night he'd gone without sleep to train. He did not pour hatred into the crest. He had learned the hard way that hatred only made the thing that wanted him hungrier. Instead he poured memory, and with it a deliberate tempering, all the small things he wanted preserved: Myra's laugh in his ear, the feel of her hand in his, the ring's cool weight on her finger, the scent of the little apartment that had somehow felt like a home even when he didn't deserve it. The crest took it all, and the house answered with a low, settling sound like a lung exhaling. For the first time he'd felt in years, something closed on the wound with a neat, surgical click. He rose, the motion slow, deliberate. He let his palms hover away until the heat ebbed back into him and the room returned to its quiet. Outside the old window the forest moved like a thing untouched by time. Sasuke smoothed his jacket, feeling the weight of the moment settle in his bones. The dual itachi promised lay somewhere ahead of him to loaned, patient, but it was no longer the only thing that could break him. He had packed more than anger to carry into that encounter. He had certainty and the scent of a life he wanted to protect. Even if it were small and fragile as the silver band now resting on Myra's finger, it was anchored in him and it would not leave with his dying breath unless he let it. He took one last look at the crest, at the lacquer flaking into a map of all the things he'd been forced to leave behind, and bowed once, a small, private ritual to the ghosts. Then he stepped out of the house and walked the path to the torii gate. The road to the gate was the same as ever, but Sasuke felt it differently. Each step was an extraction of resolve. When he arrived, the gate stood red and stubborn against the roped sky, paint peeled in slow tears from decades of weather. He stopped beneath it and let the breeze find him there, cool and sharp enough to slice through thought. He thought of the village, of the market, of his mother's laugh. He thought of Mira in the penthouse with the ring on her hand and the foxes guarding a sleeping boy Rumi loved. He thought of Naruto storm-formed, hollow and terrible and whole again, and of the way the world had bent itself around the boy's grief. He thought of Zoe and her grief unbearable. He thought of Sakura and Kakashi, his team. Rage thrummed at the edge of everything, but beneath it now lay something steadier, a slow, dangerous focus. Itachi's shadow didn't need to be anywhere nearby to be present. Sasuke had carried its weight for years. The dual Itachi had prophesied would not be merely the taking of a resonance, it would be the culmination of lives turned to torches. Sasuke let himself be afraid for a breath, allowed the old ache to rise, and then he cupped the sound of it in both palms and turned it into movement. He walked toward the place where they had agreed to fight, a clearing where the old stones rose like teeth, a ring of ruined altars and winter dead grass. The night absorbed him like a patient witness. Around the circle the air felt too small for the things he planned to do, it smelled of iron and old paper and the last breath of 1,000 promises. Before he stepped into the center he stopped and placed his palm flat on the earth, an old, absurd gesture of respect for the ground that had seen his family, his summers, his childhood games. He closed his eyes and let a single thought gather, not rage for rage's sake, but precision. If he was to finish what began that night so long ago, he would do it on his own terms. Then, with the quiet he'd always used when he was about to do something irrevocable, Sasuke stood and walked into the ring. The leaves held their breath. The world tilted toward the coming sound of two brothers meeting at last. Steam hissed around the clearing as the temperature buckled, heat and frost collapsing over each other until even the air bled silver. The ruins quaked. From the center of it all, black flame coalesced into a shape that could no longer be mistaken for anything human. Itachi rose slowly, a throne of ice groaning into being beneath him. His skin was stone gray, his hair darker than shadow, and from his shoulders unfurled a pair of crow's wings, each feather glinting like obsidian. The Sharingan burned in his skull, not the calm crimson of memory but a molten scarlet that made the night itself retreat. When he spoke, frost plumed with every word. "Oh, little brother, you finally came. I received your summons. Tell me, are you ready to die now?" The air bent with his resonance. Flames and ice poured from him in the same breath, the ground beneath the throne cracking into steaming glass. Sasuke stepped into the shimmer of that heat, unflinching. His cloak stirred around his legs, eyes fixed on the man who had shaped every heartbeat of his life. The sword in his hand hummed faintly, reacting to the chaos that had once been his childhood. He smiled, not cruel, not manic. Just calm. It was the calm that comes when grief has burned through every nerve and left only purpose. "I'm here, brother," he said, voice steady. "But I don't plan on dying. Not before I kill you and redeem the clan from the stain of your existence." That tone, measured, quiet, hit harder than rage. Itachi's wings rustled, feathers catching fire and frost in the same motion. His head tilted, the faintest tremor crossing his expression. The calmness threw him off balance. He'd expected the boy who had once screamed his name through blood and tears. What stood before him now was something else entirely, a man who had outgrown hatred without losing his edge. "So you've traded fury for serenity?" Itachi murmured, stepping down from the throne as the ice cracked under his feet. "How quaint. Do you think peace will steady your hand?" Sasuke's grip tightened on his sword, lightning crawling up his arm like veins of defiance. "No," he said simply. "It keeps it from trembling." The wind surged between them, cutting lines in the dust. The old Uchiha symbols carved into the stones began to glow, responding to the resonance of brothers whose blood still remembered unity even when their souls had forgotten it. Itachi's wings spread wide, casting the clearing into flickering shadow. Sasuke shifted his stance, lightning blooming around his blade like a second sunrise. This was no shouting match, no theatrical vengeance, just the quiet, lethal beginning of two lives finally closing the circle. Sasuke moved first. A single step, then another, the air trembling beneath his feet as the temperature spiked. His blade ignited, flames erupting along its edge, swirling in perfect sync with the rhythm of his breathing. The pattern of movement was unmistakable, fluid, deadly, and precise. The interception style, the pride of the Uchiha clan. His eyes bled red, Tomo spinning as his chakra surged in violent harmony with the fire that danced across his sword. He vanished in a blur, steel meeting frost, each strike measured with the control of a man who had rehearsed this moment his entire life. Itachi didn't even flinch. Every swing, every angle, he read as if it were his own heartbeat. His blade's long, curved hunter's swords caught Sasuke's strikes with effortless grace, the sound sharp as shattering ice. "I killed every Uchiha who ever lived," he said, voice as calm as a sermon. "Do you really think I didn't MSTRR style first?" Sparks scattered like falling stars as their weapons locked, fire clashing against frost. The pressure alone split the ground beneath them. Sasuke pushed harder, flames coiling up his arm, but Itachi's counter came like clockwork, one flick of the wrist, and a wall of ice burst between them, sealing the space in glittering cold. Sasuke skidded backward, breath forming white clouds in the air. He looked up, eyes glowing through the haze. Then he smiled. "I figured as much," Sasuke said quietly, lowering his stance. "Which is why I stopped being just another Uchiha." Itachi's expression twitched, the smallest flicker of intrigue or maybe irritation. The crow wings on his back flared, scattering feathers of molten red and silver frost as he leaned forward. "And what are you now, little brother?" Sasuke exhaled slowly, his chakra surging. The flames around him darkened red to black, heat folding in on itself until it shimmered like liquid shadow. His hair whipped in the current of his own power, eyes igniting with a depth beyond rage, beyond grief. "This," he murmured, flames crawling over his blade and skin, "is mine." The black fire burst outward, consuming the frost at his feet. It climbed his arm, wrapping his sword in lightless flame until it looked forged from night itself. His stance shifted, less rigid, less inherited. Every motion flowed like wind through fire. He spun the blade once, the arc leaving trails of dark embers that refused to fade. "I call it the flame dance," Sasuke said, voice low but steady. "It's not yours. It's not theirs. It's mine." Itachi's lips curled into a small, terrible smile, the kind only he could wear, half pride, half mockery, all hunger. "Show me, then," he said, spreading his arms as ice formed twin crescents along his swords. "Show me what you've become." Sasuke's feet shifted, the black fire whispering against the frozen ground. The air between them tightened, every breath a spark waiting to ignite. And when he moved again, the night itself seemed to burn. Sasuke moved like fire, learning to breathe, every strike a flicker, every dodge a heartbeat between death and defiance. His style wasn't clean like the Uchihas had been, it was wild, alive, a living flame that refused to die no matter how many times Itachi's ice tried to smother it. His steps came unpredictable, feints folding into counters that even the Sharingan struggled to read. For the first time, Itachi's calm faltered. His crimson eyes tracked the movement, analyzing, predicting, and still, Sasuke slipped past every pattern, cutting through his guard with the ease of inevitability. A low hum built in Itachi's throat, and the world around him darkened. His crow wings beat once, scattering a storm of black feathers that shimmered as they fell, then froze solid midair. The next instant, the sky itself turned into a hailstorm of knives. Each feather was a shard of ice, jagged and deadly, spinning toward Sasuke in a glittering arc. Sasuke didn't flinch. The black flames around him roared to life, answering some inner call that was more instinct than thought. They surged outward like a heartbeat unleashed, the air bent. The frost hissed and every frozen feather melted before it ever touched him. Steam rose in columns around his body, painting him in silhouettes of fire and shadow. Itachi's eyes narrowed. He lunged again, blades crossing in a blur, but Sasuke's form was faster, the rhythm sharper, almost musical, like a dance he practiced with death itself. Fire clashed with frost, sparks and shards exploding in the night until the whole clearing was alight with chaos. Then, Sasuke's stance changed. His chakra deepened, his voice a whisper carried by the wind. Enough. The black flames drew tighter around him, spiraling inwards before bursting upward in a single column that split the clouds. The sky glowed red and gold as a shape formed from the inferno, wings vast enough to block out the moon, feathers of midnight fire that burned without consuming. From within the storm, the phoenix screamed. Itachi smiled a sad, knowing curve of the mouth. Of course, he murmured. Rebirth and renewal. How poetic, little brother. His own resonance flared in response, and the crows that had been ice and flame now merged into one, dozens of them, a storm of wings that shimmered between burning red and freezing white. They circled him in a spiral of decay and rebirth, symbols of endings and silence. The irony wasn't lost on either of them, a phoenix for life, a murder of crows for death. Two sides of the same story, two sons of the same tragedy. Sasuke's eyes burned through the haze. You always said death was the only truth, he said, his blade pointing toward Itachi. Then let me show you how wrong you were. The phoenix shrieked again, and the world turned to fire. The night cracked open with their clash. The phoenix screamed through the sky, wings of black flame stretching wide enough to swallow the moonlight. Its heat shimmered across the dead Uchiha village, melting old snow and bringing brief light to the ruin. Opposite it, a storm of crows swirled, feathers of fire and shards of ice, their resonance humming in Itachi's control like the strings of an instrument he had long mastered. When they met, the heavens burned. Flame and frost collided, creating towers of steam that clawed at the stars. Every explosion shook the forest miles away. The phoenix's cry cut through the roar, defiant, alive, but the crows swarmed relentlessly, weaving in and out, freezing and shattering the embers it shed. For every 10 that fell, 100 more took their place. On the ground, Sasuke moved like his own storm. He wasn't panicked, wasn't desperate. His movements were measured, the rhythm of a hunter who knew pain but refused defeat. He wove between collapsing pillars of ice and fire, his blades trailing black resonance that flickered like dying stars. When one of Itachi's frozen feathers struck the ground, he countered instantly, splitting it in two with a single, precise cut that ignited a shockwave. Steam hissed off his shoulders, his coat smoldered where Itachi's heat had grazed him. He didn't flinch. Itachi stood at the center of it all, unbothered, his wings of ice and flame curling around him like a throne. Still standing, little brother, he asked, voice quiet but carrying, as though the storm itself bent to hear him. I expected more fire, less patience. Are you tired of proving yourself already? Sasuke's reply came calm and cold. Patience keeps me alive. Your mistake was thinking rage is all I have left. He surged forward, a blur through the mist. His blade met Itachi's twin swords, sparks screaming between them. Each strike threw a shockwave that shattered what remained of the Uchiha square. Water vapor turned instantly to mist, then froze again in the next heartbeat as their resonances tore the air apart. Itachi grinned that same cold, knowing smile that haunted every nightmare. You've learned control. Admirable. But you forget, I taught you chaos. With a flick of his hand, his resonance flared. The earth split open, and geysers of molten frost burning cold, searing hot erupted all around them. Pillars of ice laced with fire climbed toward the sky like the bones of some dying god. The steam was blinding, but Sasuke didn't waver. He stepped through it, black flames flaring to life along his back, and the phoenix answered. It dove from the sky, its body coiling like a living storm, tearing through the crow swarm in an explosion of dark light. Feathers of burning ash scattered everywhere, falling like snow that burned instead of melted. For the first time, Itachi flinched. A shallow cut traced his cheek, black flame residue smoldering in the wound. Sasuke smiled faintly, his blade poised, calm as death. Looks like I finally drew BLD, brother. Itachi wiped the BLD away, watching it steam on his fingertips. Good, he murmured. Then you might actually be worth killing. They collided again, faster, harder, their resonances entwining into something unholy. Fire met ice, death met rebirth. The phoenix shrieked, the crows screamed, and the sky became a battlefield of souls. Sasuke was holding his own, his flames didn't falter, they surged. He was being pushed, yes, but he matched Itachi blow for blow. The ground around them turned to molten glass under the heat, the very air breaking apart with every impact. And through the chaos, both brothers smiled, one out of pride, the other out of grief. Because both knew, this was the fight they were born for. The air split apart as Itachi rose above the burning ruins, black wings unfurling, half flame, half frost. His body shed heat and cold in equal measure, every movement making the world below ripple and crack. The clouds above churned into a cyclone of red and blue, fire spiraling around frozen thunder. From below, Sasuke looked up, the reflection of that twisted light burning in his eyes. He could feel it, his brother's resonance thick as poison, flooding the sky. The Uchiha village that had once been home was now a crucible of ghosts. Then, with one deep breath, Sasuke stepped forward and vanished into black fire. The phoenix answered. It roared out of him, wings of pure flame spreading wide before folding inward, wrapping him completely. The resonance didn't just surround him, it merged with him. His form shimmered, half human, half inferno, the silhouette of a man made of fire and shadow. When he opened his eyes again, they burned like twin suns. He launched into the air, cutting through the storm with impossible speed, streaks of black flame trailing behind him. The clouds burst apart where he passed, each flap of the phoenix's wings sending shockwaves that split sky from earth. Itachi's laughter echoed through the storm, cold and low. Finally, he said, spreading his arms. You've caught up to me, little brother. I was beginning to think I'd have to kill you while you still crawled. Sasuke's voice carried through the flames. You killed our family. You destroyed everything for power. Itachi's wings beat once, sending a blizzard of molten frost raining down. And yet you came running to me for the same thing. The sky lit up, fire and ice crashing like colliding worlds. For every streak of Itachi's frost fire, Sasuke's black blaze answered, the two of them weaving death through the air. The storm boiled beneath them, torn apart by their fury. Then Itachi stopped holding back. The air around him warped as his resonance condensed, blue ice spreading like a crown, red fire burning within it like BLD trapped in crystal. He hovered there, divine and monstrous. Do you even know why I let you live, Sasuke? He called down, voice cutting through the chaos. Sasuke's wings flared, the phoenix around him roaring in response. Because you wanted me to see what you did. You wanted me to suffer. Itachi's smile was soft, cruel. No. I wanted you ripe. Sasuke froze midair. What? Itachi's wings stretched wide, feathers of ice falling like daggers, flames curling between them. The Uchiha soul isn't bound by death, little brother. When one sibling devours the other, their spirits merge and the survivor becomes more than human. Power without limit. Sight without end. The perfect evolution of our bloodline. Sasuke's breath hitched not from fear, but revulsion. You killed them all for that? I proved my supremacy, Itachi said simply. Every elder, every prodigy, every proud fool who thought themselves my equal gone. But one I kept. He pointed his blade downward, eyes blazing scarlet. You. My little brother. My final meal. Rage ignited through Sasuke's veins, black flame flaring outward so violently it split the storm apart. You're sick. Itachi only tilted his head, unbothered. No. I am complete. Once I take your soul, the power of our entire clan will be mine, refined, eternal. I'll see the world through eyes the gods themselves would envy. Sasuke's wings flexed, flames burning white at the edges. Then I'll burn those eyes out of your skull. The two collided midair. The sound wasn't thunder, it was resonance shattering under its own pressure. The clouds tore open, lightning bleeding through sheets of crimson and gold. The phoenix screamed, colliding with Itachi's ice-fire wings, and the world below lit up as though a new sun had been born over the ruins. For the first time, Itachi faltered. The confidence in his gaze flickered as Sasuke's flames began to consume his frost. Not melt it, devour it. Sasuke's voice came through the fire, calm and cold. You took everything from me to feel powerful. But you forgot one thing, brother. Itachi snarled, forcing his resonance to surge. And what's that? Sasuke's eyes, two burning tomo surrounded by a ring of gold, locked with his. You taught me everything you knew. And I learned everything you didn't. The phoenix's cry drowned out the world. The storm writhed like a living thing. Itachi hovered in the air, wings of crows stretching wide. Each feather shimmered with a different hue: blue frost, red flame, pale water, twisting wind, and the flickering shimmer of illusion. The air bent around him, heavy and sharp. Do you see now? He called down, his voice echoing through the clouds. 5 elements, one soul. Fire, ice, water, wind, and illusion's perfection made flesh. He raised a hand, and the storm obeyed. The wind sharpened into razors, flames coiled into whirlpools, and the air grew so cold the clouds cracked. I killed them all, Itachi said softly, the words lost beneath thunder. Because no one else deserved to ascend. The sky split open. From his resonance rose the Corvus Ultima, a monstrous crow, vast as a storm front. Its body was a shifting mass of his elements, fire and ice fused into molten glass, wings made of storm wind, talons dripping with liquid frost. Its eyes were mirrors that reflected nothing but death. It screamed a chorus of every Uchiha voice Itachi had stolen. Sasuke didn't flinch. Lightning crawled up his arms, wrapping him in blinding arcs of blue-white power. But as his flames rose, the lightning didn't consume them. It mingled two contradictions made whole. The air glowed red and gold around him. My dragon, Sasuke whispered, was born from me. His eyes narrowed, twin tomo spinning into eternity. Not chakra. Not curse. Just will. The storm flashed, and his form blurred with the lightning. Lightning is the pulse, he murmured, his voice low but steady. Fire is the heartbeat. His hands moved in a single, deliberate motion, resonance roaring through his veins. Together they make life. The clouds trembled. From the storm above descended his creation, the Kirin, twin-headed, coiling through lightning and flame. Its first head crackled with thunderlight, eyes pure white, its second burned with a molten gold fire, each breath a living sun. Together they spiraled around him, wings of flame and lightning merging into a single divine vortex. Myra's embrace, Sasuke whispered. My storm. My fire. My soul. Itachi's grin widened, teeth flashing like knives. You forged it alone. Even better. You'll make a perfect vessel when I tear your soul from your body. He lifted both hands, and the Corvus Ultima shrieked in answer, wings spreading wide. Its body blazed with every element he commanded, a creature of chaos and control, the manifestation of the elder brother's perfection. The dragon roared back, its lightning splitting the clouds apart, its fire melting the rain to steam. Then they collided. It wasn't just impact, it was apocalypse. Lightning met frost, fire met wind, illusion tore through flame. The air turned to white light, space itself twisting from the pressure. Every beat of the Corvus Ultima's wings sent shockwaves that shattered mountains, every strike from Sasuke's dragon burned the sky red. Feathers of flame rained down. Bolts of molten lightning carved rivers into the ground. Itachi laughed through it all, maddened and reverent. Appealing. Your power isn't human anymore, little brother, it's divine. Don't you see? You and I were meant to end as gods. Sasuke's eyes glowed through the firelight. No, brother, he said softly. We end as monsters trying to remember what it meant to be human. He raised his blade toward the heavens. The dragon coiled around him, its two heads crossing in front of him, energy converging in a single point between them, lightning and fire, harmony and destruction. The Corvus Ultima shrieked, drawing all five of its elements into one, its body collapsing inward, condensing into a single black sun of power. Two brothers, two gods, two legacies collided in the ruins of their bloodline. When they met in the air again, it was not a clash of techniques but of souls, the divine serpent of fire and thunder crashing headlong into the dying crow of fivefold ruin. The explosion didn't sound like thunder. It sounded like grief. The sky fell quiet. No gods. No storm. Only silence and ruin. Through the settling ash, two figures fell. Sasuke hit the ground hard, sliding across the cracked tiles until the world steadied beneath him. His breath came in shudders, the phoenix's fire had guttered out, leaving only smoke in his lungs. A few yards away, Itachi rose slowly, half his cloak gone, one wing of frost and flame burned to nothing. They stared at each other. No chakra. No resonance. No illusions. Just steel. Itachi's lips curved around a cough. BLD traced down his chin as he raised his hand and tossed one of his curved hunter's swords toward Sasuke. The blade clanged across the stone, ringing sharp and hollow. Pick it up, he said, voice raw but steady. One last time. Brother to brother. Sasuke reached down. His fingers curled around the hilt like it was the only truth left in the world. They met in the center of the ruin. The first clash was thunderous, the shockwave blowing ash into spirals around them. Every strike after was smaller, more deliberate, two masters paring away everything unnecessary until there was only will. Steel screamed. Sparks hissed in the air between them. They were exhausted beyond reason, both running on pain and memory. Itachi pressed harder. His strikes were savage now, less art, more animal. He cut. For tendons, slammed elbows, hooked feet. Sasuke countered each with dwindling precision, his body breaking rhythm with every breath. You've become a fine weapon, Itachi rasped between blows. But that's all you are. A blade can't love. It can only cut. Sasuke's eyes burned, not red, not gold, just dark. Then I'll cut the hand that forged me. Their swords locked, metal grinding, their faces inches apart. Itachi coughed BLD into the space between them, smiling through it. Still playing human, even now. You think that girl will save you from what you are? Sasuke shoved him back. The next swing came fast, a killing arc Itachi met it and slipped through, twisting his sword low and stabbing upward. The blade punched through Sasuke's right arm. Bone cracked, the sword lodged deep in the shoulder. Sasuke screamed but didn't stop moving. He caught Itachi's wrist before the older man could tear the weapon free. Blood poured down his side, hot and slick, his sword hand trembling but still alive, still burning. Itachi leaned close, his voice soft. "That arm's done. Drop the blade." Sasuke's lips twitched. "No." He spun with the wound, using the pain as leverage. The blade in his left hand rose in a perfect, vicious arc, one taught by the same man trying to kill him. Itachi's eyes widened. He barely brought his own weapon up in time, but the lock came too late. Sasuke's cut shattered through it, sparks bursting across his brother's face. "Impossible," Itachi hissed. "Predictable," Sasuke answered. He pivoted on his heel, dragging the broken momentum into a final, sweeping strike. The blade passed clean through Itachi's neck. The sound wasn't wet, it was like stone splitting. For a heartbeat, Itachi stayed standing. His lips moved, but no words came. His eyes, once scarlet, now dim, met Sasuke's. There was no rage left. Only the faintest trace of awe. Then his body cracked like burnt clay. Fragments of him, ash, frost, flame, wind, peeled away in ribbons of light, unraveling upward. His resonance, the fusion of 5 elements, broke free in silent brilliance. It didn't scatter. It drifted toward Sasuke, drawn to the last of their bloodline. He stood there shaking, blood running down his arm, as the motes sank into his skin, burning cold, then settling warm, like old ghosts returning home. The black markings that had once stained Itachi's hands flared along Sasuke's arm, then vanished. "Not power," Sasuke whispered through his teeth. "Memory." Itachi's last fragments reached his face, brushing his cheek like a passing breeze. For just a second, he heard his brother's voice, gentle, human, free of malice. "Live, little brother." Then even the echo was gone. Sasuke's knees buckled. The blade slipped from his grasp. His right arm hung useless, blood pooling beneath him. He stumbled toward the open air, the world spinning, and collapsed near the cracked torii gate. With shaking fingers, he thumbed his calm, "Kakashi, it's done," he rasped. "He's gone." Static crackled back, someone shouting his name, but Sasuke barely heard. His head drooped, breath coming shallow. He looked up once more, toward the faint dawn creeping over the ruins. "Mira," he murmured, voice fading. "You'd better keep that ring safe." Then the line went dead, and Sasuke slid sideways into the dust, his brother's resonance still faintly glowing beneath his skin. The light in the room was soft, filtered through half-drawn curtains. Outside, Sol was still half asleep under the weight of post-storm rain. Naruto woke to the sound of steady breathing pressed against his chest. His body felt lighter than it had in years, no ache of corrupted resonance, no burn where Orochimaru's mark used to hum under his skin. Just quiet. Real, unfamiliar quiet. He blinked, eyes finding the woman in his arms. Rumi. Her head rested just below his collarbone, hair tangled from sleep, her arm draped loosely across his ribs. Faint lavender patterns shimmered across her skin, pulsing softly with each breath. The light from the window made them look almost liquid, like ink that had learned to breathe. He smiled, brushing her hair back with slow fingers. His hand drifted to his own cheek out of habit. Smooth. He tried the other side. Smooth there too. The seal that had lived under his skin since he was 15, the whiskers Orochimaru carved into him the night his parents died, was gone. He sat there for a long time, staring at the faint reflection in the dark window. For the first time since he could remember, his face was his own. A soft voice broke the silence. "You're awake." Rumi stirred, blinking herself into the same dawn. She shifted up onto one elbow, her hair falling around her face. When she saw him, really the unmarked skin, the calm in his eyes, something flickered behind hers. Relief, maybe. And something deeper, more complicated. Naruto grinned weakly. Hey, guess I owe you another rescue. You don't owe me anything, she murmured, voice rough from sleep. You already did the impossible. He tilted his head. What, surviving? Her eyes fell to his chest, to the faint scar where the seal used to burn. That too. He reached out and brushed his fingers over one of her glowing patterns. It pulsed beneath his touch, reacting instinctively to his resonance. Still shining, he said softly. I missed that. Rumi tried to smile, but it came out thin. You shouldn't touch them. They're appealing, he interrupted, his tone simple, final. They always have been. Her throat tightened. You only say that because you don't know what they mean. Naruto frowned, half confused. What are you talking about? Rumi hesitated. For a moment she looked ready to tell him everything about Orochimaru, about bloodlines and curses and how evil could be hereditary, but then her courage cracked. She looked away. Nothing, she whispered. Just you should rest. You burned too much resonance. The doctor said. I'll rest when you stop shaking. That stopped her. She blinked down at her own hands, realizing she'd been trembling. Naruto sat up slowly, ignoring the twinge in his shoulder, and cupped her face in both hands. Hey! Look at me. Her eyes met his. I don't care about marks, he said softly. Not mine, not yours. We both got burned by people who wanted to own us. But we're still here. That's what matters. Rumi swallowed hard, the tears she'd been holding back threatening to spill. She nodded, barely, and leaned forward until her forehead rested against his. For a long time, neither spoke. The rain outside softened to a gentle patter against the window, the rhythm of a city catching its breath. Naruto closed his eyes. You're the only mark I ever want, he whispered. Rumi let out a shaky laugh that turned into a quiet sob, holding him tighter than before, not because he knew the truth, but because he didn't, and still meant every word. The hall outside Celine's room was silent except for the hum of medical wards and the faint click of fluorescent lights. Rumi stood there for a long time, hand hovering over the door, her reflection fractured in the glass panel, a woman who looked like she belonged nowhere. When she finally stepped inside, the scent hit her, first herbs, ozone, and something cold underneath. The machines whispered softly, tracing a heartbeat that barely stirred the air. Celine lay still. Bandages wrapped half her torso, one arm suspended in a cradle of resonance tubing that pulsed faintly with light. Her skin was pale, translucent, faint traces of black veining crawled up her neck like withered roots. Rumi sank into the chair beside the bed. For a moment she couldn't breathe. Hey, she whispered, her voice catching halfway through the word. I came like I promised. No answer, just the rhythm of the monitor and the soft rise and fall of Celine's chest. Rumi leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees, fingers threading through her hair. Her patterns glowed faintly across her shoulders, nervous, light, unstable. What do I do, Celine? She whispered. You'd know what to say. Her voice cracked, the room swallowing it. I'm supposed to tell him, right? The truth. That the monster who killed his parents, the one who cursed him, is my father. She laughed weakly, a sound with no joy in it. That's not something you just say over breakfast. Her eyes fell on Celine's hand, pale, unmoving. Rumi reached out and held it between both of hers. He said I was the perfect creation, remember? Born from ruin. And for once, I believed him. Her fingers tightened. Because if he finds out, Mom, if Naruto looks at me and sees him, how could he ever touch me again? How could he ever see these? She glanced at her glowing patterns, trembling, and still call them appealing. The resonance wards along the wall flickered, responding to her instability. She pulled her hands to her chest, forcing herself to breathe, forcing the glow to dim. I thought the patterns were my curse, she whispered, but now I know it's my BLD. She swallowed hard. He's free, you know. The curse marks, the seal's gone. He finally escaped everything Orochimaru ever did to him. A tear slipped down her cheek. And I'm what's left of it. Rumi wiped at her face with the back of her hand and looked at Celine again, half hoping for the miracle, a twitch, a sign, a word. Nothing. Would you tell him? She asked softly. Would you let him hate you just to keep him clean? The machines kept whispering. Somewhere deep in the resonance tubing, a faint shimmer passed through the fluid, a pulse that wasn't from the hospital equipment. Rumi froze. For half a heartbeat, Celine's hand twitched, not enough to wake, just enough to feel. The resonance monitors flickered, registering the smallest echo. Rumi blinked, tears blurring her vision. Was that you? The pulse shimmered again, one faint, golden glow where the demonic corruption had nearly consumed her arm. It faded almost immediately, but it was enough. Rumi pressed her forehead to Celine's hand, trembling. Okay, she whispered. I'll wait. I won't tell him yet. But when I do, I'll tell him everything. Her voice softened to almost nothing. Just please wake up. I need you. The room stayed silent. But for a moment, just before she stood, the resonance lines on Celine's arm glowed faintly gold, battling back against the black. Rumi smiled through her tears. You always did like dramatic timing, she whispered, and slipped out quietly, leaving the faint hum of the ward behind her. The night above Seoul was thick with rain and static, the kind that blurred neon into watercolor streaks. Psy crouched on the edge of the Huntrex tower, his coat clinging to him, brush holstered at his wrist. From here, the city stretched endless, an ocean of light. But it wasn't the skyline that made his pulse quicken. It was the resonance. Two signatures pulsed through the metropolis like twin heartbeats, ancient, heavy, and unmistakably demonic. Not the Saja boys' corrupted idols, not a lesser spirit. Something personal. Something bound to each other. His ink flared black at the edge of his brush, reacting instinctively. Naruto, he murmured. And someone else. He could feel the other energy intertwined with his, softer, melodic, but every bit as potent. He reached for his communicator. Tsunade, I'm confirming 2 elevated demonic frequencies in the city limits. This isn't the Saja boys. It's... The sound behind him cut him off, a low growl, wet and heavy, like the sea breathing. Sai turned too late. Samahata slammed into his ribs, the blade scales tearing through resonance itself. His body arced with pain, BLD scattering in the rain. He hit the rooftop hard, breath leaving him in a cough. Sorry, kid, a deep voice rumbled through the downpour. Orders are orders. Kisame Hoshigaki stepped out of the shadows, his shark grin gleaming under the streetlights below. Water slicked off his skin like oil. Orochimaru says no interference. That means no little root scouts sniffing around his fun. Sai's eyes narrowed, pain forgotten. His brush snapped to his hand in one smooth motion. And I was wondering what smelled like rot. Samahata shivered, almost laughing. Kisame chuckled. You're quick. Let's see how long that lasts. Sai's brush slashed through the air, his resonance bursting to life, black ink spraying across the rooftop, swirling into form. The lines twisted, expanded, and took flight. A giant eagle, feathers drawn from smoke and ink, screamed into existence. Sai vaulted onto its back, one hand pressed to his side. Root doesn't run, he said coldly. We reposition. He snapped his fingers, and the eagle launched skyward, wings cutting through the storm. Below, Kisame roared with laughter, then leapt after him, Samahata spinning like a living saw. Oh, I like this one. The city shuddered under the clash, water exploding upward as the hunter fled and the shark pursued. In the distance, 2 other storms slept unaware, one in a hospital bed, one in a girl's trembling hands. And as Kisame's laughter echoed through the rain, the game Orochimaru had set in motion finally began. They burst through the hospital doors in a blur of motion and sirens. The scent of ozone still clung to Sasuke's body, burned cloth, iron, ash. The medics shouted orders over each other, resonant signatures flaring like heat mirages as they worked to stabilize him. He barely heard them. All he could feel was the blood soaking through the gauze where his right arm should have been. The phantom weight of the sword was still there, still clutched in fingers that no longer existed. Every pulse was a scream. Every breath, a knife. But when he turned his head, when his half-blurred vision caught the figure pushing through the crowd, the pain dimmed. Mira. She ran to him before anyone could stop her, her coat still half-zipped, hair a tangle of wind and rain. For a moment, the sterile white light softened. It felt like the world had finally slowed down enough for him to see her clearly again. He managed a crooked smile. "You still wear it." Her eyes flooded instantly. "Of course I wear it," she whispered, taking his hand, the one that remained, pressing it to her heart. "You came back to me." He wanted to tell her how close it had been. How Itachi's blade had cut too deep, how his arm had been lost to by one final strike. How he'd felt his brother's resonance die in his grasp, turning to ash and light before sinking into him. How it still hummed there, faint and mournful, in the space between heartbeats. But he couldn't. The words caught somewhere between his lungs and his throat. All he could do was look at her, at the way she was shaking but still holding on. The medics tried to pull her back, voices rising. She ignored them, leaning in until their foreheads touched. "You don't get to leave me again," she breathed. "Not like this." He closed his eyes, the ghost of a smile curving his lips. "Wouldn't dream of it." Then the strength left him. His body went slack, monitors screaming as the medics surged forward. Mira stumbled back, hands smeared red where she'd been holding him. "Get a crash seal on him. Now." The doors slammed shut, cutting her off. She stood frozen in the corridor, trembling, the ring he'd given her glinting faintly in the fluorescent light. For a long time, she just stared at it, at the simple band that had survived blood and flame and the death of gods, and whispered through the crack in her voice. "Don't you dare die on me, Sasuke." There was no sky. No floor. Only motion, as if the world were breathing him in and out. Sasuke blinked, and the darkness took shape. A mirror hung in front of him, cracked, bleeding light. His reflection wasn't his own. Itachi stared back. He looked younger, eyes clear, mouth soft with laughter. The mirror rippled, and Sasuke felt his own heartbeat synchronize with it, one pulse, two souls. He tried to step back, but the reflection moved first. Then the world collapsed inward, and he wasn't watching anymore. He was. He walked to his little brother playing with him, his father smiling with his mother, a perfect family. He was an hunter, and he swore to protect this. At first there was only the boy. He woke with the dawn because good sons did. He trained because his father asked. He smiled because his mother's voice deserved to hear it. He promised his little brother that he would always protect him. He was light, pure, certain, almost holy in his belief that strength was meant to shelter, never to rule. The first demon kill changed him. It was not the blood that haunted him, but the sound, the dying creature whispering his name in a language that felt older than human. It said he could have more power, more clarity, more control. He called it temptation, but the thought stuck. When the next mission went wrong and the squad screamed for help, he remembered the whisper. He remembered the ichor steaming in the dirt and the scrolls that spoke of temporary enhancements. He told himself, if I take just a drop, I can save them. What good is purity if everyone dies? He drank. The world lit up. The demon fell. Weeks later, he could still feel that light under his skin. The rush had been clean, godlike. He told himself he didn't miss it. Then came another mission. Another failure waiting to happen. He looked at the vial again. Just a small dose. Prevention, not addiction. He took it. The pulse came faster this time, and when it ebbed he felt hollow, like something vital had been scooped out of him. He told himself it was fatigue. He told himself heroes are allowed to rest. The nightmares began. He saw demons in mirrors, in puddles, in his own eyes. He woke shaking, sweating, heart-starving for the burn that made the fear go quiet. He began collecting vials from every corpse he felt. He labeled them clinically, wrote reports that made his obsession look like research. If I understand it, it can't own me, he said. He was still a good man, after all. Still doing this for the clan, for the mission, for Sasuke. His superiors noticed the results. They didn't ask how he did it. They just asked for more. More victories. More demons slain. More miracles. He smiled and gave them what they wanted. He learned to fight through the tremors, to hide the fever behind precision. When he ran out of vials, he started making deals. Just to restock. It's for them. For safety. He began to believe his own lies. Home no longer felt like home. His father's lectures sounded like accusations. His mother's eyes gentle, questioning felt like knives. Sasuke's laughter grated, it reminded him of who he used to be. He stopped eating with them. He stopped praying. He stopped looking at the sun because it showed him every stain. At night he told himself, they'll understand when I'm strong enough. They'll thank me when no one can ever threaten us again. The needle slid easier now. The blood ran warmer. The rush was no longer a miracle, it was maintenance. One mission bled into the next. He could taste the demon blood before it touched his lips. The craving became prayer, the injection, communion. His reports became scripture. His reasoning, gospel, to save the weak, I must become what they fear. To purge darkness, I must learn its language. Each justification carved another piece away until nothing contradicted the hunger. He stopped calling it demon blood. He called it resonance. He called it clarity. He called it truth. The night of the massacre, the rush didn't even need a syringe. His veins already sang with the chorus. He walked through his home like through a dream. Every strike was perfect, every scream a note in the symphony of completion. He told himself it was mercy. That death was the final purification. That if he absorbed them, they would live forever in him. And when their souls poured into him, he felt alive in a way that language couldn't hold. Power. Absolute. Untouchable. Holy. Then. The boy at the end of the hall. Small. Trembling. Calling his name. For the first time in years, the light flickered. The rush faltered. He felt the tiniest fracture where humanity still whispered. He could not kill that voice. So he fed it a lie instead. Grow strong. Hate me. Come find me. He told himself it was a test. He told himself he wanted to die by a worthy hand. He told himself the CYCL needed to end. But the truth was simpler, uglier. He needed the promise of his brother's hatred to keep the hunger alive. He had become what he once hunted, a creature that needs pain to remember it still exists. Sasuke stumbled through it all, the laughter, the prayers, the needles, the lies, until he couldn't tell where memory ended and penance began. He saw the boy his brother had been vanish under layers of excuses. He saw the man who replaced him stop pretending those excuses mattered. By the time the tunnel ended, Itachi wasn't there anymore. Only the hunger was. And deep inside it, Sasuke heard himself whisper. I understand. Sasuke fell to his knees in the dark. The mirrors had stopped shattering, there was nothing left to see, only the echo of his own breathing. All the noise, the orders, the lies, the hunger drained out of him. He could still see Itachi standing there, trembling, the syringe shaking between his fingers. The monster everyone feared looked so small now, human and broken. You weren't a monster, Sasuke whispered. You were an addict. The words hurt as they left him, slicing through years of hatred that had kept him alive. He pressed a hand against his chest, feeling his heartbeat stutter under the weight of truth. You just wanted it to stop, didn't you? The pain. The silence. The emptiness. The dark didn't answer. It only rippled soft, like breath against his ear. I thought you wanted power, he said, his voice shaking. But you were just trying to feel alive. A figure stepped out of the shadow. Not the Itachi of legend, not the killer from the stories, just a tired man with blood on his hands and regret in his eyes. Now you see me, the figure said quietly. Not what I became. Sasuke lifted his gaze, tears strkng his face. You killed them. You killed everything we were. I killed what I'd already destroyed, Itachi replied. The hunger did the rest. Then why spare me? Because you were still clean, Itachi said. I wanted at least one of us to stay that way. Sasuke's breath broke. You could have stopped. You could have told someone. Addicts don't stop, Itachi answered. They run out. The words hung in the air, heavier than any confession. Sasuke bowed his head, trembling. You weren't evil, he whispered. You were sick. Itachi's hand, ghostly and warm, rested against his shoulder. And now you. Understand, the echo said. Don't let my sickness be yours. Light began to spill into the tunnel, first dim, then blinding. Sasuke reached out, but the hand was gone, the darkness folding into itself. He gasped awake. The beeping of monitors replaced the hum of memory. Myra's voice cracked through the noise, small and desperate. Sasuke. Please stay with me. He turned toward her, tears still wet on his face, and for the first time in years he spoke his brother's name without hate. Itachi, his lips trembled, voice breaking into something between a sob and a sigh. I forgive you. The words rippled through the room like a spark caught in wind. His chest ached, and then warmth. A pulse, deep and golden, surged beneath his skin. He gasped as light flared through his veins, not fire this time but something softer, resonance twisting and folding until it felt like another heartbeat beating beside his own. He saw him, Itachi, just once more, standing in the doorway of that endless darkness, smiling. Not proud. Not sorrowful. Just free. Then he dissolved, his soul breaking into 1,000 motes of crimson light that drifted into Sasuke's body like embers returning to a hearth. The monitors spiked, the room trembling faintly as his aura ignited. The phoenix that had once burned within him flared one final time, wings unfolding, then changed. Its fire dimmed, feathers darkening to obsidian trimmed in silver flame. The light did not burn, it pulsed like breath, steady, alive. The phoenix had been reborn, no longer a creature of vengeance, but something older, wiser. A Kuroho, the black phoenix. Mira cried out, reaching for him as the light faded. Sasuke's breathing steadied, the tension in his face gone. He looked at her, exhaustion softening into something like peace. It's over, he whispered. He's home. Mira threw her arms around him the instant his body steadied, pressing her face against his chest. Her sobs broke against his skin, soft and desperate, and he felt her tears soak through the sheets. Sasuke smiled faintly, his one remaining arm curling around her, drawing her close. The muscles in his shoulder burned from the strain, but he didn't care. For the first time in his life, there was no noise, no vengeance, no ghosts, no hunger, just warmth. Mira pulled back just enough to look at him, her breath trembling. You're really here, she whispered, cupping his face in both hands. I'm here, he said. His voice was rough, but calm. There was peace in it. She kissed him, slow and certain, as if to convince herself he was real. He kissed her back, the weight of everything he'd carried for years dissolving between them. His right sleeve was empty now, the bandages clean and tight, but when her fingers traced the edge of it, he only smiled. "It doesn't matter," he murmured. "I have everything I need." Myra's tears came again, but this time they were soft, quiet, almost grateful. She rested her forehead against his, and together they breathed in sync, surrounded by the faint shimmer of the Kuroho's wings still flickering above them like an afterimage of light. For the first time since childhood, Sasuke felt whole. The storm had passed. He was free, and in Myra's arms utterly, perfectly content. Naruto sat quietly on the hospital bed, rolling his shoulder until the last of the stiffness faded. The nurses had cleared him for light duty, though Tsunade's glare had made it clear that light meant no saving the world for at least a week. He'd smiled, promised to behave, and knew even as he said it that he wouldn't. The room was too still. The hum of the monitors had long since stopped, the foxes of wind, lightning, and water had vanished into his resonance again, their presence replaced by a faint warmth in his chest. He looked at his reflection in the window, skin smooth, unmarked, the whiskers gone. It still startled him every time. He looked like a stranger. Rumi waited by the doorway, arms folded, her violet patterns faintly glowing under the hospital lights. She hadn't said much since he woke, but her eyes never left him. When he finally stood and crossed to her, she relaxed just a little. "Celine's stable," he said quietly. "Tsunade says it'll take time, but she'll wake up." Rumi nodded, her fingers brushing the edge of his sleeve. "And Sasuke?" Naruto exhaled, a breath that came out more like relief than words. "Alive. Barely. But alive. They said he finished it. Itachi's gone." The weight in his voice wasn't triumph. It was something heavier, respect, sorrow, the echo of a story only brothers could understand. They left the hospital together, stepping into the cool night. The air smelled of rain and city steel. The lights of Konoha shimmered like distant stars below, and for a long time neither of them spoke. Naruto's hand found hers, and she didn't pull away. "Guess we both made it out," he murmured. "Barely," she said, trying for a smile. They walked in silence through the sleeping streets. Somewhere behind them, a phoenix of dark flame dreamed in a hospital room, and in another wing, a woman with golden hair kept vigil over her comatose sister. But for now, the world was quiet. Naruto glanced up at the sky, the storm long gone, the stars sharp and clear. "It's strange," he said softly. "Everything feels different. Like the world's still moving, but slower." Rumi squeezed his hand. "Maybe it's just finally catching its breath." He smiled at that. "Yeah. Maybe." They walked on, the city stretching before them, two survivors under a sky that, for the first time in years, didn't feel like it was waiting to break. The plane hummed softly as it cut through the clouds, soul glowing faintly below like a sea of stars. Naruto leaned back in his seat, one hand loosely resting over Rumi's. The cabin was quiet, the others were asleep or pretending to be, the long week finally catching up to them. Rumi, though, wasn't sleeping. Her gaze stayed fixed on the window, her reflection caught between lightning flashes outside. The faint glow of her violet patterns pulsed under her sleeve, dim but restless, alive in a way they shouldn't have been. Naruto studied her for a moment, his thumb brushing the back of her hand. "What's eating you?" he asked softly. She blinked, startled, then forced a small smile. "It's nothing," she said, her voice barely above the hum of the engines. He exhaled through his nose, unconvinced. "Rumi, I've known you for 15 years. I know when something's bothering you." He leaned closer, lips brushing her ear in a teasing attempt to break the tension. "You can tell me," he murmured, nibbling gently at the edge of her ear. A tiny shiver ran through her, but she didn't laugh this time. Her hand tightened around his. "Naruto," she whispered, her tone cracked halfway between affection and fear. He pulled back slightly, frowning. "Hey. Whatever it is, we'll deal with it. Together." She looked at him, then really looked at him, and for a heartbeat, he saw something in her eyes that wasn't exhaustion or fear. It was guilt. Ancient, bone-deep guilt. But before he could ask again, the plane jolted through a patch of turbulence, and she turned her gaze back to the window. "I'm fine," she said again, softer now. "Just tired." Naruto sighed and leaned back, still watching her reflection in the glass. The lights of Seoul were getting closer, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for them in that city, something she was already bracing herself to face. Rumi kept her eyes on the clouds as the plane dipped lower, the seatbelt light glowing dim in the dark. She could feel Naruto's warmth beside her, steady, constant, the one thing in this world that had ever made her believe she was more than her lineage. But his hand around hers felt heavier now. He didn't know. The thought pressed against her ribs until it hurt. He didn't know who her father was. He didn't know that the same monster who had destroyed his childhood, who had murdered his parents and nearly erased everything he loved, was the man whose blood ran through her veins. She swallowed hard and forced herself to breathe evenly, to smile when he looked her way. It had worked for years. It could work a little longer. "It's fine," she told herself. "You're fine." But her patterns betrayed her. They pulsed faintly under her sleeve, reacting to every spike of emotion. She tried to still them, but the resonance had a will of its own, like the serpent beneath her skin was whispering, "He'll find out. He'll see you for what you are." Her mind wandered back to Orochimaru, that cold smile, that unholy curiosity. The day he'd told her the truth. "You are my legacy, Rumi. My perfect experiment. You can run from my name, but not from my blood." She'd spat at him. Sworn she'd never become him. But deep down, she'd known it wasn't that simple. His blood was her curse, and if Naruto ever looked at her and saw him, it would kill her. Naruto's fingers brushed her cheek, breaking her from the spiral. "You okay?" he asked again, quiet, worried. She forced a soft smile. "Just thinking." "About what?" She leaned into him, resting her head against his shoulder, hoping he couldn't feel the tremor in her hands. "About how lucky I am," she lied. He smiled at that, small, genuine, trusting. And the guilt that bloomed in her chest felt worse than any wound. Rumi turned back toward the window, watching the city lights of Seoul climb into view. The rain started somewhere below the clouds, faint streaks catching the reflection of their plane as they descended. Just one more night, she thought. One more night before everything breaks. The rain hadn't stopped since they left the airport. Seoul shimmered under the downpour, every streetlight fractured into trembling puddles of color. Naruto held the umbrella high above them, his coat drawn tight, the twin swords hidden beneath its folds. Rumi walked close beside him, her hand in his, quiet but distant. He squeezed gently, trying to draw her out. "You sure you're okay?" She smiled without looking at him. "Just tired." He frowned. "You've been saying that since we left the hospital." "I mean it this time," she murmured. Naruto sighed, chuckling softly despite himself. "Rumi, I've known you for 15 years. I know when something's bothering you." He leaned closer, voice low and teasing. "You can tell me." But the moment lingered too long, too heavy, and her hand went still in his. Then he stopped walking. His entire body tensed. There across the intersection, half hidden in the rain, stood Kabuto. The glint of his glasses caught the streetlight, and the faintest smile curved his lips. Naruto's voice dropped to a growl. "Kabuto." The traitor raised both hands in mock peace. "Relax, Naruto. I'm not here to fight." His tone slithered, every word measured, poisonous. "Just thought I'd say hello to an old friend and to the daughter of my MSTR." Rumi froze. "Don't," she whispered. Kabuto smiled wider. "Oh, he doesn't know, does he? My. You've kept that secret well." Naruto's hand fell from the umbrella to his side, instinctively brushing the hilts beneath his coat. What are you talking about? Kabuto took a slow step forward, rain dripping from his hair. You, the savior of men, walking hand in hand with the BLD of the serpent who murdered your parents. Quite poetic, isn't it? Rumi's breath hitched. Shut up. Tell him, Rumi. His voice turned almost tender. Tell him who your father is. Naruto turned to her, confusion flickering into dread. Rumi. Her lips parted, but the words came out broken. He's telling the truth. Orochimaru, he's my father. The umbrella slipped from Naruto's hand, collapsing in the gutter. The rain drenched them both, cold and merciless. For a heartbeat, neither moved. The city around them blurred into streaks of color, the rain drowning the silence. Naruto's face was unreadable shock hollowing him out, not from hatred, but from disbelief. Kabuto watched, satisfied. Ah, he murmured. There it is. He turned to leave, voice fading into the storm. Truth always frees or destroys. Let's see which one it is for you. Then he was gone, swallowed by rain and shadow. Rumi's voice shook as she reached for Naruto. I didn't know until a few days ago, she said quickly. I wanted to tell you, I swear, but I was scared. I thought you'd hate me. Naruto's eyes softened. Rumi, I could never. But before he could finish, her patterns flared bright pink beneath her skin. The lines danced like living fire, rippling up her neck, her arms, across her chest. Her resonance surged, mirroring her panic. Her voice broke. You say that now, but look at me. Her irises shifted, the warm brown he'd always loved melting into a gleaming yellow, slit and sharp like a serpent's. Naruto froze. His body moved before his mind caught up, his hand falling instinctively to his swords. He didn't draw them. He didn't even mean to. But she saw. The fear in his eyes wasn't for her power. It was for the ghost those eyes belonged to. You, her voice cracked. You reached for your sword. Naruto took a step forward, rain slicking his hair to his forehead. Rumi, I wasn't going to. Her tears came fast, hot despite the cold. You were going to defend yourself, she said, trembling. You were scared of me. I was scared of losing you, he shouted, his voice breaking. But she was already backing away. You said you'd never look at me like that, she whispered. Like I was something to fight. Rumi, please. She shook her head, breath hitching. I can't. I can't let you see me like this. And then she turned and ran. She bolted down the rain-slick street, boots splashing through puddles, resonance flaring wild behind her. Naruto called her name once, twice, but she didn't stop. The sound of her sobs was drowned by thunder. Rumi. He stumbled forward, then stopped, chest heaving. The rain came harder, cold enough to sting. His knees hit the pavement as his breath faltered, panic clawing at his throat. His hands trembled as they hovered over his swords, guilt pressing down like weight. I didn't mean to, he whispered, the words lost to the storm. I didn't mean to. The world blurred. Thunder rolled across the skyline, echoing his heartbeat. Somewhere ahead, down the endless streets of Seoul, Rumi disappeared into the rain. The city lights flickered, and for a long moment, it felt like the whole world was holding its breath waiting to see which of them would break first. The rain hit harder now, drowning the city in silver noise. Neon lights bled down the glass towers, colors twisting in every puddle. The whole world seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat, frantic, uneven, breaking. Her feet slapped against the pavement ahead of him, every step a sound between thunder and heartbeat. She ran like someone who'd rather tear herself apart than stop. Her braid was a dark WHP against her back, her jacket plastered to her skin, violet patterns glowing faintly beneath it like lightning trapped under glass. Rumi. His voice cracked through the rain, raw, useless. Please, stop. She didn't. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she was terrified of what she'd see if she turned around. Naruto pushed through the flood, chest burning, lungs useless. The rain felt alive, punishing, each drop heavy as guilt. He could barely see her through the blur of headlights and mist, but he knew her every line, every motion. She wasn't running for her life. She was running from herself. Cars screamed by, tires hissing on the slick asphalt. Vendors yanked down tarps, shouting over the storm, watching the two figures tear through the chaos, a girl running like she wanted to disappear, and the man chasing her like the world was ending if she did. He could hear her sobs even over the storm. Not words, just broken sounds, the kind that carried everything she'd been holding back. He saw me. He saw me. He saw him in me. Naruto caught up enough to reach out, fingertips grazing her sleeve, but she ripped free with a sound halfway between a gasp and a cry. Her shoulders shook, her steps uneven. He knew that tremor. He'd seen it in battle when her body hit its limit, when her heart couldn't take another wound. "Rumi, please," he gasped, breath ragged. "Talk to me." "Don't," she shouted over her shoulder, voice breaking. "Don't come near me." Her words sliced deeper than any blade. He stumbled but kept going, chasing the flash of violet patterns ahead of him. The memories came like shrapnel, her laughter spilling across rooftops, her hand on his cheek after missions, the quiet way she'd whisper, "You're my calm, Naruto." He couldn't lose that. He couldn't lose her. The thought cracked through him like lightning. He ran harder, ignoring the pain, ignoring the world. She cut through an alley, the neon washing over her like blood and bruises. The wind whipped through, tearing the umbrella from his hand, the storm roaring in his ears. And then she turned. It happened in an instant. Her braids snapped in the wind, droplets scattering through the air. She faced him wide-eyed, trembling, rain strkng down her face like tears. The city light caught her just right, carving her in gold and shadow. Her eyes met his. Yellow. Slanted. Serpent-like. He stopped cold. The breath left him. The reflex came unbidden, his hand falling toward his sword, a motion born not of thought, but memory, of fear that had been branded into him since childhood. He didn't draw. He didn't want to. But she saw it. She saw everything in that split second, the fear in his eyes, the hesitation, the heartbreak. Her lip trembled. Her voice came out strangled, broken. "You said you'd never look at me like that." "I don't," he shouted, but the rain devoured his words. "You were scared," she said, voice barely more than a whisper. "You saw him." He took a step forward. "I saw you." But her tears fell faster than his words could reach. "No," she said, shaking her head. "You didn't." Her chest hitched as she turned again, sprinting into the storm. "Rumi." He ran after her, slipping, stumbling, desperate, but she was faster, driven by terror and shame and love twisted into pain. Her sobs echoed off the wet concrete, mixing with the wail of distant sirens, with thunder, with his own hoarse breathing. Every step she took was a wound opening in him. Every time her name left his throat, it came back broken. He could barely see anymore. The storm blurred everything, and yet her shape burned through it, violet, wild, fading. He thought of the nights they'd spent talking until sunrise. The way she'd rest her head on his chest, tracing the scars she said made him appealing. The way she'd look at him like he was her home. Now she was running from that home like it was fire. She glanced back once, and that was the image that would haunt him forever. Not the yellow of her eyes. Not the patterns burning against her skin. But the look on her face, that raw, terrified realization that he, too, could hurt her. That even love could look like a weapon. Something inside him shattered. He screamed her name again, but it drowned beneath the thunder. She vanished into the maze of Seoul's backstreets, swallowed by the storm. Naruto staggered to a stop, chest heaving, his breath shallow and wet. The rain hit him like punishment. His hands shook as he pressed them to his face, but he could still feel the hilt under his fingers, that single, traitorous twitch of instinct that had cost him everything. He sank to his knees in the middle of the street, head bowed. "I didn't mean to," he whispered. "I didn't mean to." The rain didn't answer. It only fell harder, washing the world in silver and sorrow. And somewhere deep in the labyrinth of the city, a girl with serpent eyes ran until she couldn't breathe, the sound of his voice chasing her through every heartbeat. Naruto fell to his knees, the storm crashing down around him. The sound of rain was deafening, hammering the pavement, pounding his back, mixing with the sound of his own ragged breathing. His chest burned, his throat raw, his hands shaking so hard the hilts of his swords clattered against the asphalt. He couldn't lose her. Not Rumi. Not after everything. A voice slipped through the storm, soft, amused, venom wrapped in silk. "Coo coo coo, so the storm finally collapses." How appealing. Naruto froze. He didn't need to look up to know that voice. But he did. Slowly. Orochimaru stepped out of the rain as though it parted for him. His pale hair clung to his face, his long coat darkened with water, and yet his yellow eyes gleamed like polished gold, alive with cruel satisfaction. Naruto's breath hitched. "You," he rasped. Orochimaru smiled, slow and deliberate. "Ah, the Stormbringer. I didn't think we'd see each other again so soon." He spread his hands, rain dripping from his fingers. "Fate has a sense of humor, doesn't it? You burn away my mark, purge my influence from your body only to fall apart because of my bloodline." Naruto's eyes narrowed. "You stay the hell away from her." "Oh, Rumi." Orochimaru tilted his head, tone almost curious. "I met her, you know. 2 days ago. Fascinating girl. She trembles when she's angry just like you do. She has my eyes too." He smiled thinly. "My BLD. My legacy. She's nothing like you," Naruto said, his voice low, shaking. Orochimaru chuckled softly. "Isn't she? You can't wash BLD away, boy. You can bury it, deny it, even paint over it with love and lies, but it always comes back." "She has a choice," Naruto growled. "She isn't your puppet." The serpent's grin widened. "You still believe in choice? Even after everything I took from you?" "Oh, Naruto. You're adorable when you pretend you're not a victim of fate." "Say her name again," Naruto warned, hand twitching toward his swords, "and I'll end you." "End me?" Orochimaru's voice dropped to a hiss. "You couldn't even end me when I killed your parents." He leaned forward, eyes narrowing to slits. "Do you remember the smell, Naruto? The fire. The BLD. The sound your mother made when she realized she couldn't protect you." Naruto's breath broke. His grip tightened until his knuckles split. Orochimaru's tone turned almost gentle. "You were crying so loud that night. Such a pathetic sound. I almost killed you too, but you looked so much like her. I wanted to see what you'd become." His smile widened. "And here you are. Exactly what I expected, broken, bleeding, pretending to be righteous." Naruto stood, trembling, his blade sliding free with a harsh metallic hiss. Lightning flared behind him, turning his silhouette into something divine and furious. "You talk about BLD," he said, voice shaking, "but you've never understood it. Family isn't what you create in a lab. It's what you fight for. What you die for." Orochimaru's expression sharpened, interest flickering behind the smile. "Ah, there it is. The sermon before the slaughter." Naruto took a step forward. The storm moved with him, the wind picking up, thunder cracking above, his resonance awakening like a heartbeat under the clouds. "She's not yours," he said, louder now, his voice echoing through the rain. "She'll never be like you." Orochimaru's grin returned, serpentine and bright. "Then prove it. Show me, boy." Show me your resonance. Show me that your love is stronger than BLD. Naruto's eyes flashed, stormlight burning in their depths. You want to see the storm? He growled. He raised his swords, lightning snapping across the steel. His eyes turned crimson. Then drown in it. Orochimaru's grin widened just before Naruto vanished. One heartbeat he was there, the next he was a blur of light and motion, storm resonance bursting from him like a living thing. The storm stance. It was never meant to be used with two blades. The technique demanded precision, one hand to channel lightning, the other to steer the wind that shaped its edge. But Naruto didn't care about precision anymore. He wanted power. He wanted speed. He wanted the serpent's BLD on the ground. Lightning crawled up both swords, hissing blue against the rain. The air around him screamed as currents collided, the friction sharpening each blade until they looked carved from pure thunder. Water spiraled upward around his legs, drawn by the pull of his resonance. The street itself seemed to twist under the force. Orochimaru's pupils narrowed. So reckless, he murmured. You've forgotten restraint. Naruto didn't answer. He moved. The first strike came low, faster than sight. Kusanagi flashed to meet it, sparks scattering through the rain. The second came from the opposite side, horizontal, the wind slicing half a lamppost clean before Orochimaru twisted away. The serpent's coat tore open, fabric hissing where the stormlight grazed it. Quick, Orochimaru hissed, almost delighted. Too quick. Naruto's eyes burned with focus. He pivoted, both blades crossing, and the rain itself seemed to follow the arc, each droplet turning into a tiny flash of light. Orochimaru deflected, barely, his arm jolted numb by the contact. The storm stance fed on movement, every swing built momentum, every step pulled more air and water into the vortex around him. Lightning flickered through the puddles, running up walls and bursting into sparks across the ground. Orochimaru lunged, Kusanagi slicing in a silver blur. Naruto parried with both blades, the clash erupting into a concussive wave that shattered windows up the block. Water lifted off the street, suspended for a heartbeat before crashing back down in a single roaring sheet. Naruto pressed forward. One blade slashed high, the other reversed low, a rhythm of chaos, each slide punctuated by thunder. The serpent bent and flowed around him, parrying with impossible grace, but for the first time in years, he looked interested. Two blades, he said between clashes, voice steady despite the storm. The stance was designed for one. You're forcing the elements to grind against each other. You'll tear yourself apart. Naruto's breath came heavy, the stormlight reflecting in his eyes. Good, he spat. As long as I take you with me. He surged forward, a blur of blue and white. Orochimaru met him, Kusanagi singing through the rain, their resonance clashing again and again until sound itself fractured, lightning and wind grinding so sharp it screamed like steel. The street disintegrated beneath them. Puddles lifted into spirals. The sky cracked open with every strike. Orochimaru deflected another blow and laughed, exhilarated. Yes. Show me more. Let me see the weapon grief made. Naruto roared, twisting both blades outward, and the storm answered, an explosion of light and air, a shockwave that hurled both of them through the rain-smeared chaos of soul. The air fractured with each clash of steel. Naruto's dual blades burned brighter, the storm answering his rage, the streets of soul shaking with every strike. Water spiraled around them, skyscraper lights rippling in distorted halos. Orochimaru's laughter cut through it all, sharp and delighted. Magnificent. Faster, Naruto, let me see it. Naruto's movements blurred, his resonance surging beyond control. Lightning crawled over his skin, threading into the wind, pulling the rain into orbit. The edges of his swords glowed white-hot as if the air itself wanted to burn. Then, all at once, the storm bent inward. Thunder collapsed into silence. The city went weightless. And from the void of that stillness, power bloomed. Clouds rolled from the ground up, black and luminous, spiraling around Naruto until they took the shape of a titanic fox spirit. 9 tails of lightning unfurled behind it, each one stretching for blocks, trailing wind and water in their wake. Its eyes opened twin white suns cutting through the rain. A hush fell across the world. Orochimaru's grin froze for a heartbeat. "Ah, there it is," he whispered. "The perfect storm." Naruto stood at the center of the kitsune's chest, his body suspended in the swirl of clouds, eyes glowing the same blinding white as the beast's. His voice rumbled through the storm itself. "This ends now." The kitsune moved with him, every motion echoing his intent. Lightning crashed down in ribbons, turning the street to molten glass. Winds howled, bending lampposts flat. Orochimaru threw his arms wide, ecstatic. "Yes. Show me what my storm can destroy." He slammed his palms to the ground. From the fissures burst hundreds of serpents, merging, knotting, coiling upward until they formed a single colossal python of black resonance, its scales shimmering green and violet. The monster hissed, tail cracking concrete like bone. Orochimaru climbed its head, laughter rolling with the thunder. "Let's see if your god bleeds." The serpent lunged. The kitsune met it head-on. The serpent struck first, the ground splitting under its weight as it surged forward, jaws unhinging wide enough to swallow a building. The air warped around it, scales rippling with a sickly green light that hissed where it met the rain. Naruto answered with movement a single breath, and the storm exploded outward. The 9-tailed kitsune rose from the vortex, its body woven from lightning, wind, and cloud. Each of its tails whipped the air into blades, slicing through the downpour, each movement a chorus of thunder. Its roar shook the skyline, windows shattering for blocks, the sound crawling into bone. The serpent met the sound with one of its own, a deep, grinding rumble that made the earth tremble. Its coils wrapped the ruins of a city block, each scale etched with Orochimaru's resonance marks pulsing like veins. Rain turned to steam where the two forces met, the sky a blur of silver and black. Naruto moved at the kitsune's heart, eyes white with stormlight. "You won't touch her," he said, his voice echoing through the creature's throat, each word a tremor in the clouds. Orochimaru stood upon the serpent's head, arms outstretched like a priest in a cathedral of chaos. "She's already touched, boy. The BLD is mine. You can't save her from that." The serpent lunged. The kitsune met it head-on, claws of lightning tearing into coils of black resonance. The impact split the air open, a soundless flash of light followed by a storm of debris. The serpent's fangs sank into one of the kitsune's tails, and for a heartbeat it seemed the serpent would crush it, but the tail burst apart into wind, reforming above its head, striking down with the fury of a cyclone. Orochimaru laughed, exhilarated but not careless, pushing his resonance deeper into the serpent. Its form grew denser, more defined, green fire burning from its eyes. "You can't win, Naruto. This power of yours burns too bright, it'll devour you before it ever destroys me." Naruto's reply came through the roar of thunder. "Maybe. But I'll drag you into the storm with me." The serpent coiled around the kitsune, both titans twisting, the ground beneath them fracturing into a web of molten glass. The kitsune's tails wrapped back, anchoring around the serpent's body, lightning and darkness intertwined like twin helixes tearing the city apart. For every strike Naruto landed, Orochimaru answered in kind. Lightning met venom, wind clashed with shadow. One tail shattered under the serpent's bite, one coil burned away in the kitsune's electric grasp. Neither faltered. The battle raged across the skyline, storm and serpent locked in a perfect, ruinous balance, neither giving an inch, neither willing to die. And through it all, both men smiled. Naruto, BLD in his mouth, eyes burning white. Orochimaru, laughter drowned by thunder. Because they both understood this was never about victory. It was about who would break first. The air tasted like metal. Every breath burned. Naruto felt the pressure building behind his eyes, the resonance screaming through his veins. The storm inside him was no longer answering his will, it was demanding. Blood trickled from his nose, hot against the rain. Then from his ears. His eyes burned red at the edges, lightning veins spreading across his skin. He grit his teeth, forcing his body to hold, to endure, to fight. Across the storm-torn street, Orochimaru threw his head back and laughed. The sound cut through thunder, smooth and cold and utterly delighted. Yes, that's it. Push yourself, boy. Let it devour you. Naruto staggered, hands shaking on his blades. The kitsune above him roared, its tails lashing like hurricanes, each swing tearing the clouds apart. The sky twisted violently, 6 storm fronts spinning into being around it, their winds shrieking loud enough to drown the world. You're dying, Naruto, Orochimaru called, voice carrying through the gale. You think this power is yours, but it's never been yours. It's mine. My gift to you. My curse. Naruto spat blood, lightning flashing from the motion. You think you own the storm, he rasped. You never even learned to stand in it. The kitsune howled a sound that bent steel and shattered windows, and the 6 hurricanes merged into one colossal spiral, the rain turning to razors, the air itself liquefying under the pressure. Lightning poured down the beast's tails like rivers, striking the serpent's body again and again, until scales exploded into shards of black glass. Orochimaru's laughter never stopped. He guided his serpent forward, its jaws wide, fangs glowing with venomous green light. More. Show me how much of your soul you'll burn for her. Naruto roared in answer, the sound breaking into static. His vision blurred, the world pulsing white and red, but he drove forward anyway. For her, he growled. For all of them. The storm descended, a wall of wind and lightning that erased shadow, erased sound, erased everything but 2 shapes locked in combat, one born of storm, one of serpent, neither yielding. Every pulse of power wrung more blood from Naruto's body. His skin cracked with light, veins glowing like molten lines. The kitsune mirrored his agony, its form fracturing at the edges, storms bleeding into one another, collapsing the horizon. Still, he refused to stop. Orochimaru smiled through the chaos, voice steady even as the serpent buckled beneath the hurricane's weight. You'll destroy yourself to stop me. And when you fall, I'll tell her that you died proving I was right. Naruto lifted his swords again, every movement trembling with exhaustion and defiance. Then I'll make sure you choke on that lie. He leapt, the storm following, and the 9-tailed kitsune surged upward with him, roaring so loud it broke the clouds apart. The 6 hurricanes merged at its back, a ring of spinning destruction, and for a moment the night itself looked like it was burning. And through the roar and the blood and the breaking light, both men knew whatever came next would end one of them. The sky over Seoul fractured like glass. Wind screamed through the streets, ripping banners from buildings and hurling them like shrapnel. Lightning spidered across the skyline, turning skyscrapers into pillars of fire and shadow. The storm wasn't just above the city anymore, it was inside it, threading through every alley, every rooftop, every terrified breath. The 9-tailed kitsune towered over the skyline, its tails twisting hurricanes out of the air, drawing thunder down in sheets. The serpent wound through the wreckage below, coils crushing cars, tearing through asphalt like paper. Each clash of their resonance sent shockwaves rippling outward, breaking glass for miles, toppling streetlights, setting alarms screaming across districts. People ran. Hunters scrambled to form barriers that dissolved instantly under the pressure. The air was too dense, the resonance too wild, uncontainable. In the storm's heart, Naruto fought to stay upright. Blood streamed down his face, dripping from his chin to mix with the rain. Every beat of his heart sent a fresh burst of lightning through the kitsune's veins. His body felt hollowed out, nothing but current and pain. Orochimaru stood tall on the serpent's head, the wind whipping his coat like tattered wings. His laughter carried even through the thunder. Look at it, Naruto. Your miracle, he shouted, voice sharp with triumph. The great Stormbringer, protector of Seoul, has become its destroyer. Naruto's throat ached from screaming. I'm not the one who brought this. But you're the one who can't stop it, Orochimaru replied, eyes bright with delight. Do you hear them? The city crying beneath you. That's the sound of your salvation eating itself alive. Below, the streets were rivers, cars tumbled end over end in the flood. Neon signs flickered and died, plunging whole blocks into darkness. The storm's roar swallowed everything, drowning prayers, alarms, the cries of people too small to matter in the war of gods. Naruto felt the panic twist inside him, the weight of the city pressing on his shoulders. The kitsune faltered, tails flickering as if even the storm itself hesitated. Orochimaru saw it and smiled. Appealing, he whispered. Even gods can doubt. Naruto wiped the blood from his eyes, his voice raw. I won't let you take her. I won't let you take this city. He raised both swords. The kitsune answered, roaring, its tail spinning until the air itself broke apart. The wind bent buildings, lightning slammed into the serpent's coils, splitting them, burning through the rain. The serpent struck back, jaws wide, tearing chunks of the storm beast away and flinging them across the city as bursts of thunder. And so the whole of it shook. Skyscrapers swayed. Rivers overflowed. The Han Bridge split with a sound like the world cracking open. Above it all, two figures glowed at the storm's heart, one of cloud and light, one of shadow and venom, locked in a battle that no human could understand, and no god could ignore. The sirens were useless. No one could hear them over the wind. The streets of Seoul had become rivers of light. And debris, the sky cracked open above them, and still, people ran. Root agents in black raincoats sprinted through the chaos, dragging civilians from crushed cars, guiding them into the underground lines where the storm couldn't reach. The sound of shouting mixed with the boom of thunder, radios crackling with broken orders. Seal off District 9. We've got resonance interference signals dropping. Get the wounded under the towers, move. Each time lightning struck, whole blocks went dark. The Root commander shouted into his earpiece, Hunter HQ confirms Stormbringer is fighting the serpent. Repeat, Stormbringer is in combat. All operatives, containment priority. More teams poured in, hunters with their emblems flashing white in the rain, weapons drawn, eyes wide at the sight above the city, the colossal kitsune of cloud and lightning, its tails carving through skyscrapers like blades. And opposite it, a black serpent the size of mountains twisting through the skyline, every scale alive with poison-green light. Get the people out, one hunter yelled. We can't stop that. Somewhere near the riverside, the chaos deepened. A new surge of resonance rippled through the air, a darker, wetter presence. Kisame walked out of the flood, Samahata slung over his shoulder, grinning like a shark tasting blood. He took one look at the storm and laughed, the sound echoing like thunder in the rain. Appealing, he said. A city drowning in power. I could get used to this. Root operatives turned toward him, weapons drawn. Hunter class anomaly blue resonance. Engage. But they were nothing to him. Water erupted around his feet, slicing through the streets, cutting down agents before they could react. Pathetic, Kisame sneered. All this order, all this training, and you still die screaming. He turned toward the glow on the horizon, stormlight flashing across his teeth. I think I'll pay the Stormbringer a visit. I bet he tastes divine. Not tonight. The voice came from behind him, deep, weary, absolute. Kisame froze mid-step. He didn't even have time to turn before the pressure hit the weight of a resonance older and heavier than anything he'd felt since the wars. The air around him rippled, raindrops vaporizing before they touched the ground. He turned slowly, half smiling. You. Jiraiya walked through the smoke, coat whipping in the wind, white hair plastered to his face. His eyes were hard, colder than Kisame remembered. You picked the wrong city. Kisame grinned, hefting Samahata. So the old sage crawls out of hiding. What's wrong? You jealous your students finally surpassed you? Jiraiya didn't answer. He just moved. The ground shattered under his first step. Kisame swung, but the blow never landed. Jiraiya's fist did. The impact cracked the pavement, the shockwave throwing water and bodies in all directions. Kisame crashed through a wall, rolling out into the street, blood spattering the rain. He tried to rise, but Jiraiya was already there, his hand pressed to the ground, sigils flashing through the flood. You always did talk too much. Kisame roared, swinging Samehada upward. The blade shrieked, resonance flaring blue. Let's see if you still bleed, old man. Jiraiya's resonance surged, the air turning white-hot. He caught the blade mid-swing, lightning crackling around his arm, and twisted. The sword screamed in protest, its scales curling back as if in pain. Kisame tried to pull away, but Jiraiya was immovable. You should have stayed in the ocean, Jiraiya said quietly, and drove his fist through Kisame's chest. The impact was silent, then deafening. The air inverted, the pressure collapsing in on itself, and when it cleared, Kisame was nothing but ash, scattered into the rain. Samehada clattered to the ground, lifeless, the light in its scales gone. Jiraiya stood over the remains, breathing hard, rain hissing off his skin. He looked up at the sky where the kitsune and serpent tore soul apart, eyes narrowing. Naruto, he murmured, voice heavy with pride and dread, don't you dare die before I get there. He picked up Samehada, slung it over his shoulder, and started walking toward the storm. The kitsune's claws clamped around the serpent's neck, lightning searing through black scales as the two monsters wrestled midair. Naruto's blood was already pouring freely from his nose and mouth, mixing with the rain until it ran crimson down his chest. He could feel the tremor in his hands, the sickening grind of bone against muscle as the storm tried to tear him apart from the inside. He forced the kitsune higher, every motion agony. The serpent hissed, fangs snapping inches from his face, but Naruto's roar drowned it out. He dragged both of them out of Seoul, out over the ocean, until the city lights were a distant blur beneath the clouds. With one last burst of power, he drove the beast down. They slammed into the island, rock shattering, waves splitting into walls of spray. Orochimaru staggered, laughing through blood, you can't even stand, he rasped, his voice slick with delight. Your body's finished, boy. Naruto fell to one knee, blood spilling from his lips. His skin glowed in cracks of lightning, muscles tore, flesh burning from within. The air stank of ozone and iron. Still, he rose. Orochimaru lunged, Kusanagi flashing pale in the stormlight. The blade sank deep into Naruto's chest, sliding between ribs, punching through lung. Air left him in a wet gasp. He grabbed the sword's edge with both hands anyway, lightning crawling over his fingers. Orochimaru leaned close, breath hot against his ear. Listen to it, he whispered. That sound, the storm eating its own MSTR. It's appealing. Naruto coughed, blood spraying across his chin. His vision blurred, the world flickering between light and shadow. He could barely breathe, every inhale a gurgle of copper. But still, he gripped the blade tighter, forcing it out inch by inch. I told you, he rasped, voice shredded, you'll never touch her. The kitsune moved behind him, mirroring his agony, a colossus of storm bleeding into the sea. Lightning streaked across its body, splitting tails in half, wind flaying its form. The water rose, swirling into whirlpools around them. The pressure was crushing, the wind tearing at his limbs, pulling until his joints screamed. Lightning burned across his back, carving lines into his skin like molten brands. His face twitched violently, cheek muscles splitting under the strain. Still he pushed forward, step by step, every one costing blood. Orochimaru watched, enthralled. Magnificent. Even dying, you won't kneel. Naruto raised his swords, both trembling in his hands. I'm not dying, he hissed. Not yet. The lightning answered him, pouring from his body in a blinding surge. The island vanished in a flash, replaced by stormlight and the roar of gods locked in their last breath. Orochimaru's laughter broke through the roar of the sea, thin and triumphant. Naruto could barely see him through the BLD in his eyes, but he didn't need to. He felt his resonance, his venom, his smug, unshakable certainty. The serpent writhed in the waves behind them, half dissolved, half alive. The kitsune towered over it, barely holding form, tails torn, body unraveling into rain. Every breath Naruto took sounded like drowning. Orochimaru twisted the blade in his chest. "You could have been everything, Naruto," he whispered, voice almost gentle. "But you never understood. Power demands surrender." Naruto's hand shot forward, seizing Orochimaru's wrist. Lightning exploded from the contact, crawling up their arms, binding them together in white fire. His voice came out hoarse, broken. "Then I'll make the storm take us both." The sky answered. The first bolt hit, a blinding spear of light that tore through the clouds and struck them dead center. Both screamed, Naruto from the agony of power ripping his body apart, Orochimaru from the joy of it. The ground cracked, molten rock hissing under their feet. The second bolt came before the echo of the first had faded. BLD sprayed from Naruto's mouth, his spine arched, bones glowing through skin. Orochimaru's laughter turned to shrieks, his flesh blistering under the light. The third bolt shattered what was left of the island's peak, sending stones and seawater flying in every direction. Naruto's heart stuttered, his pulse throbbed in his ears like thunder. He held on to Orochimaru tighter. The fourth strike split the horizon, turning sea to steam. For a heartbeat, their silhouettes were one storm and serpent locked together in the flash. The fifth bolt silenced everything. No wind. No rain. Just white. The sixth descended like judgment itself. The kitsune and serpent both screamed, their forms collapsing, resonance unraveling into nothingness. The light devoured the island, swallowing both men whole. When the storm finally broke, there was only rain, gentle now, falling on an empty stretch of ocean where the island had been. The waves rolled over glassed stone and charred sand. No serpent. No storm. No bodies. Only silence. The sea was quiet except for the hiss of steam. The island, or what was left of it, was nothing but scorched stone and molten glass, the air thick with the smell of ozone and BLD. Orochimaru staggered through the wreckage, his robes half burned away, skin blistered black where the lightning had kissed him. Each step left pieces of him behind, ash, charred cloth, BLD sizzling against the heat of the ground. He was laughing, breathless and broken. 6 times, he whispered, almost admiringly. "You actually called it down 6 times. His voice cracked into a wheeze. "And still, you couldn't kill me." He looked down at Naruto's body lying among the shattered rocks. The boy's chest barely moved, no breath, no pulse, skin pale and cracked from within like fired clay. Steam still rose from the wounds, his hands fused to the melted hilts of his swords. Orochimaru knelt beside him, trembling fingers brushing Naruto's face. The skin was still warm. "Appealing," he murmured. "Even dead, you hum." He straightened, pulling the Kusanagi blade from the sand. Its edge was jagged, warped from the lightning. "You've done well, little storm. Truly. But now your resonance belongs to me. And Miruek will follow soon enough." He raised the blade. Then the light came. It started beneath Naruto's ribs, faint at first, then pulsing stronger, white and gold, flickering through cracks in his burned skin. The air around him began to tremble, pebbles skittering across the stone. Orochimaru hesitated, the smirk faltering on his face. "No," he muttered, stepping back. "You're." The glow intensified. Lightning crawled through the veins of the corpse, tracing every scar, every wound, knitting them in fire. Naruto's eyes opened, pure white, reflecting the storm that wasn't there anymore. Wind stirred where none should be. The sea flattened, pulled outward by an unseen gravity. Orochimaru stumbled backward, shielding his face. Impossible. You're empty, there's nothing left to burn. Naruto's chest rose. The sound that came from his throat wasn't human, it was the echo of thunder finding its voice again. The light burst outward. Orochimaru screamed as the force hit him, the world turning gold and white. His burned body slammed against the rocks, the kusanagi spinning out of his hand. Every nerve in his flesh remembered what fire felt like. Naruto stood, or what was left of him did, glowing like the heart of a storm reborn. And for the first time, Orochimaru felt something close to fear. Miruk looked down at the boy, the stormlight fading from his veins, his chest rising slower with every breath. The god's first thought was mercy. Let the child sleep. Let him dissolve into quiet, he had suffered enough. But when he reached for the soul, the memories opened like wounds. He saw them, not the battles or the glory, but the smallest moments. The laughter in rain-slick alleys. The shy touches. The warmth of Rumi's hand in his. There was no greed in him, no hunger, no thirst for vengeance. What beat inside this boy was simpler, rarer, and infinitely harder to destroy. He wanted only to love. To love her, to protect her, to walk beside her when the world was cruel. Miruk had never known that kind of love. He had known devotion that burned, worship that chained, betrayal that hollowed. But this human tenderness was something beyond divinity. It was pure in a way even light could never be. And it hurt him. He had collapsed eons ago under the weight of his own love for the world, he had turned inward, devoured by the gravity of disappointment. But here, in this broken boy, he saw what he had lost, the stubborn glow that refused to die. The god's presence trembled, darkness rippling like breath. He is everything I was not. For a moment, Miruk considered letting the light fade completely. Let the world keep its cycles, let the sun stay dead. But the boy's soul burned too fiercely. Even now, torn and bleeding, it shone with a warmth that refused to yield. He would die for her, Miruk whispered, voice rolling like the tide across the ruins of the storm. And he did. He looked upon Naruto's body broken, scorched, glowing faintly in the dark, and felt something move in his vast, cold chest. Maybe this child was different. Maybe this light didn't need to be extinguished. Miruk reached forward, the shadow of his hand passing through the boy's heart, and for the first time since the dawn of creation, he didn't take, he gave. His power, once a black sun of ruin, folded into the boy's dying spark, reshaping itself around that stubborn, human love. Darkness met warmth. God met man. And for the first time in eternity, Miruk smiled. Orochimaru was out of breath, chest rising and falling in ragged rhythm. And yet he smiled. Wide. Unrestrained. Ecstatic. There's something different about you now, he whispered. Naruto didn't answer. The air around him pulsed wrong, heavy, electric. His eyes, once the color of open skies, now glowed a deep, unholy crimson. Orochimaru's grin widened, his voice trembling with delight. A true monster finally revealed. He giggled, soft and broken. Oh, pain, you want to cage this? I can't wait to see you try. He looked around them. What had once been an island was now a scar upon the sea. The rock was burned to glass, the ocean churning black at its edges. Steam hissed from the molten cracks. The sky itself looked wounded, clouds split in two, the stars faint and pale above the ruin. Naruto stood at the center of it all, motionless, surrounded by drifting ash. No light touched him, it bent away. The air felt suffocating, gravity drawn inward, as if the world itself couldn't bear his presence. Orochimaru took a step closer, curiosity shining through the exhaustion. So, he breathed, spreading his arms, the serpent smile curling back into place, you finally gave up the noble hero act. Tell me, was it worth it? To trade your humanity just to kill me? Naruto's only answer was silence and the slow hum of his blades being drawn. The steel glowed not with lightning or flame but with darkness, black smoke trailing from the edges. Like burning paper. It wasn't resonance. It wasn't stormlight. It was something older. Orochimaru could feel it in his bones, the pull of gravity, the quiet hunger that existed before creation. He laughed, sharp and delirious. Oh, yes. Yes. That's it. The divine wrought beneath the storm. You brought a god back with you, didn't you? Naruto lifted his head. The motion was small, but the world reacted. The ash shuddered. The sea froze in its waves. For an instant, everything stopped. Orochimaru's laughter faltered. His grin trembled. What are you? Naruto stepped forward through the dust, every movement soundless, the ground cracking beneath him without a noise. The smoke from his body coiled upward, drifting into the shape of a halo turned black. When he finally spoke, it was not his voice. It was something vast and layered, like a choir buried under stone. Not storm, it said. Not man. The sun that fell. Orochimaru's eyes widened as the meaning sank in. Miruk. Naruto's face remained unreadable, the faint shimmer of ash falling from his skin like snow. You took much from him, the voice continued, calm, steady, ancient. And now you will return it. The serpent's MSTR tried to speak, but the air turned heavy, crushing the sound back into his throat. Orochimaru stumbled backward, choking, trembling between awe and terror. Appealing, he rasped, as the darkness around Naruto deepened into something bottomless. Even gods bleed. Naruto raised his blades, each one trailing that same black smoke, each swing slower, heavier, as if cutting through the world itself. And Orochimaru finally understood that this was not vengeance, not justice. It was gravity. And he was already falling. The sky was silent. The storm had burned itself to ash. Naruto stood before Orochimaru, what was left of him bathed in the pale light of ruin. His eyes burned like eclipsed suns, his aura bending the horizon itself. Every heartbeat radiated a low, humming pressure, the kind that makes the sea forget how to move. Orochimaru staggered backward, skin blackened and splitting, his smile gone but his fascination undimmed. You're magnificent, he rasped. Even gods need hosts. Tell me, does it hurt, being divine in such a fragile shell? The voice that answered wasn't Naruto's. It was calm. Endless. Heavy. I am not divine. Lightning whispered through the clouds. The sea turned to glass. I am what comes after divinity. Orochimaru's scream was lost before it began. Miruk's power collapsed inward, a black sun forming around the serpent's heart. No light escaped. No echo remained. Orochimaru's existence ended not with violence, but with quiet erasure undone, as if he'd never been written into the world at all. For a moment, everything was still. Miruk hovered at the edge of thought, feeling the emptiness left behind and the pulse of the mortal heart inside this broken vessel. The boy was shaking. His blood was boiling. Every vein glowed faintly with overdrawn power, every muscle fiber unraveling beneath divine pressure. This body cannot bear me, Miruk thought. If I stay, he dies. He could have remained. He could have used the body until it burned, remade it in his image, and ended the sorrow of humankind in a single, merciful night. But he looked again through eyes once blue, through the boy's grief, through the love still tethered to a girl somewhere beyond the storm. That love steadied him. That love refused annihilation. Miruk's voice softened, for the first time in eons. You are not my vessel, little son. You are my heir. The glow dimmed. His power folded back into the wound it had come from, receding like a tide. As it went, he left a trace, a sliver of that cosmic weight settling in the boy's heart. Not to rule him, but to remind him. Naruto gasped. The storm around him cracked apart, raining ash and salt. His legs buckled, and he hit the earth hard, the swords clattering beside him. His body trembled, blood dripping freely from his mouth and eyes, but his human heart still beat. Above him, the air shimmered. For an instant, the faint outline of a halo lingered, no longer black, but gold flickering at its edges. Then even that faded. And Naruto lay there, alone on the ruined island, chest rising shallowly with every fragile breath. Miruk was gone. But his echo remained, pulsing faintly beneath the storm-bruised skin of the boy who had survived him. The sea was black when Jiraiya arrived. He'd followed the trail of destruction from Seoul all the way to the horizon, thunder still echoing in the distance, flashes of lightning painting the ocean like broken glass. The hunters followed close behind, their faces pale beneath their hoods. None of them spoke. There was nothing left to say. When the island came into view, the breath left Jiraiya's lungs. It wasn't an island anymore. It was a crater of melted stone and charred coral, still steaming. The air stank of ozone and blood. His boots crunched over glass where sand used to be. Every tree had been reduced to shadow on rock. They found nothing at first. No bodies. No bones. No serpents. Just one thing lying half buried in the cooled slag, a single sword, unscathed, humming faintly with residual malice. Kusanagi. Jiraiya stared at it for a long moment before sighing, the sound breaking through the stillness. He finally did it, he murmured. "UDMN fool, you actually did it." He turned. His men were already spreading out, searching through the wreckage, but something caught his eye, a shape among the smoke, small and unmoving. Naruto. He was sprawled across the glassed shore, body still, clothes torn and blackened. But somehow impossibly his chest rose and fell. Slow. Steady. Alive. "Kid!" Jiraiya shouted, sprinting forward. He dropped to his knees beside him, hands trembling as he pressed against the boy's shoulder. Naruto's skin was warm, too warm and slick with blood. Before Jiraiya could check for wounds, Naruto's eyes snapped open. The world shuddered. A blast of wind burst from him like a heartbeat, raw resonance, unfocused, desperate. It threw Jiraiya back a step as spectral kitsune tails flared around the boy's body, forming for a split second before fracturing into shards of light. Naruto gasped, pushing himself up on shaking arms. His eyes were glassy, unfocused, as if he hadn't returned fully to himself. "Rumi," he rasped, voice raw and hollow. "I have to get to Rumi." "Kid, you're in no shape to." Naruto staggered upright anyway, bloodstrkng down his face. The storm answered his panic, wind spiraling around him, a phantom fox forming beneath his feet, wings of vapor and lightning unfurling. He took one step, rose half a meter, then the light sputtered and died. He fell. Jiraiya caught him before he hit the ground. The resonance faded, leaving only the sound of waves and the rasp of shallow breaths. Naruto's hand still twitched weakly, reaching toward the mainland as if he could still see her through the dark. "I have to get to her," he whispered again, voice breaking. Jiraiya pressed a hand against his back, steadying him. "You will, kid. You will. But not like this." He looked at the ruin around them, the godly violence reduced to silence, and something in him twisted with both pride and fear. The Stormbringer had survived the wrath of a god. But Jiraiya knew, as he lifted the boy in his arms, that some storms never truly end. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 15. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Slygold on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.